Recording. All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome to our coach clinic. We're looking into coaching esports during COVID. Our wonderful host will be Callum Fletcher. I'll give you, yeah, he's pretty awesome. Callum, I'm going to give it over to you and you can kind of introduce yourself. We do have a QA feature, so if you have any questions, please go ahead and put it in there and we'll answer them at the end.
Hello, everybody. My name is Callum Fletcher. Super excited and thankful for the opportunity to host this session. It's the first time I think I've actually hosted a panel opposed to being on it, so I'm looking forward to that. As Melanie said, my name is Callum Fletcher. I'm the director of esports at Illinois Wesleyan University. We are a competitive-driven program focusing on recruitment and retention. We field teams in Rocket League, Overwatch, Smash Brothers, League of Legends, and Fortnite. And generally, I'm just super excited to be a part of the collegiate esports landscape and do everything I can to help it grow. So, yeah, I think that's about it for me. Am I good to introduce the rest, Melanie? Or okay, awesome. So, especially going into this panel, we have a fantastic team here. So, starting off on the left with Dr. John Price. Dr. John Price is the esports director at Henderson State University. In 2018, he founded the first university-sponsored esports program in the state of Arkansas. So another pioneer there. Next over on the list, Nate Meeker. You might have heard Nate and I chatting about Rocket League here beforehand, kind of the God squad in the collegiate space for Rocket League. Nate is the director of esports at the University of Akron. He has been a faculty member, curriculum developer, administrative staff for over 10 years. Nate has experience in high-level competitive gameplay. John Alfred following is the AP dual enrollment U.S. history teacher and coach, including traditional and esports at Willow Canyon High School in Arizona. He partnered with universities in the Phoenix area and his students received scholarships to play at that level. And then last on our list, but certainly not least, Ronnie Baskin is the head coach. How often do you get antagonized for the Baskin?
Yeah, it's I had it my whole life. I didn't marry into it, right? So she ruined it for me.
So Ronnie Baskin is the head coach and IT tech for the British International School of Houston. He's a recent member of the TAPS administrative board and an esports advocate for his entire life. So really excited to be on this panel, real excited to be talking with everyone here. So we're going to just kind of dive in. This is a question for kind of all of you. What does esports look like with the impact from COVID-19? Talk a little bit about your program, both collegiate or high school, virtual, in-person, hybrid. Kind of give me the full TLDR rundown. So I'll make it easy. Let's start with John.
Okay. Wow. I was just going to jump in, but I love being called out. I love being first. The expectations are low. So esports during COVID has made things very difficult. Normally we would use the spring, especially April, May, as recruiting for fall because we run 2 seasons in Arizona. And we didn't have that, and it was extremely difficult. A lot of students here in Arizona basically gave up in the spring, which is harsh to say, but it was hard to recruit. And then when we came back, we don't come back physically to school until next week. And so once again, we have that real hard recruiting. I spent a lot of time, got a bunch of new equipment, and can actually expand the amount of teams I have, but I don't have the players, and that's just a struggle. The players I do have, though, PlayVS has been flexible enough to let them play from home, and it's been super successful. Those players that I do have, it's just I'd like to be bigger, and instead I'm more like small and elite.
Sure. Okay. Ronnie, why don't you take it up next?
Yeah, so this year's been an adjustment for us. Our enrollment is actually down from last year by about 20%. We are kind of in a unique position where we're basically an international school, and a lot of our kids, if they're not here with their parents because they're traveling back and forth, they're just stuck back at home. So it's really impacted the amount of kids we have just in general. And we started the year about 4 weeks ago, and we allowed parents to kind of choose if they wanted to send their students back right away or if they wanted to learn virtual. So we started with a hybrid model, and it was about 50-50 split right from the start. We let them change it up every 3 weeks. So we've gone through a 3-week cycle now, and now we're back to about 60-70%. It's still, a lot of the kids are still learning from home. It's been a struggle to kind of just get the word out that we're back and esports is a thing again. But in general, I've done some creative things with my new athletic director to kind of get the ball rolling, and I've had to kind of think outside the box a lot more this year than the past several seasons I've had. But the kids that we have been able to keep around, they're more committed than ever, I feel, and we've been able to kind of stay in touch over Discord, things like that, over this whole kind of weird summer break for everybody.
Okay. All right. On to the next one, Nate. Take it away.
Thank you. So for us, honestly, at the varsity level, we really haven't lost a whole lot on the competitive side of things. Back when COVID hit in March, we planned for this fall to be as remote as possible, going forward with that starting here in the fall. It's been pretty successful. I would say the biggest problems have really come from things that are outside of our control, with players either not having access to consistent internet or potentially having issues with where they're connecting from. But we provide them with equipment and we help make sure that they're practicing regularly. They're still going through all the regular training regimes that we would do. For us, the biggest impact has honestly been on the recreational and club level, which we do pretty actively as well. We've got around 2,500 students involved with that aspect of the program here at Akron, and not being able to get in front of a large group of students for the incoming class has really affected us. So that incoming group of freshmen really hasn't been able to figure out exactly what's going on quite yet with esports on campus. So for them, our target is maybe spring, maybe even next fall, depending on when everything goes according to plan. But what we've been trying to do is just organize online activities for them. So on average, there's 2 or 3 things happening every night for those students, and we're getting pretty good engagement for that, but it always could be better if we were able to get in front of them at the start of the semester.
Okay. All right. Doc?
Thank you. So similar kind of to everyone else, competitive-wise, we've pretty much been similar to what we had been expecting already. But the problem that we've been having the most is really just that, is the recruiting. It's keeping people being interactive, being social in a safe way. And so similarly, we've gone completely, our Discord is now essentially the heart of everything, unlike our esports lab, which is still running, but with such limited capacity. I just finished giving out the last half of my computers we weren't using to competitors so we can free up more lab space, for example. So it's been a struggle, and we've still gotten some students to come in, and we're very much exploring that virtual element, trying to work with intramural to get more people on campus that wouldn't even interact with esports. It's one that's been particularly successful, is trying to work that in, but it definitely presents a lot of problems that you would not normally expect. I think one of the highlights though is that we're still being able to do something when so many different activities normally just that they don't have an alternative. So I guess that's really the highlight of the silver lining, so to speak, is that we're still able to operate, maybe not how we wanted to, but we're still there at least.
Right. So and I think COVID creates this like really rough situation for students in that there's a big transitional period coming up, or they've recently come into college. Obviously classes are totally different than they're used to. So with COVID kind of factoring into this, John, this question's for you. Burnout is obviously an extremely real risk that our students handle on a regular basis. What strategies do you have to recognize and manage burnout? And what are some of the behaviors that you purposely look out for and mental health situations that you look for?
Yeah, so burnout.
Nope, meant John Price. Sorry. You've got the next one, I promise.
Next one, okay. I'll wait.
I was wondering when that would happen. So hey,
Too many Johns.
So I'm gonna go with for John Price. I'm gonna go with Doc. John, you're John Alfred.
You can just call me Alfred. Everybody does. So
easy enough. Easy enough.
Great question though. So one of the things that since I started is I try to sit in on every practice to some level and all meetings of some sort, just so I can, as well as interact with the students. And the thing that's really helped me identify it is you start to understand how students usually are playing, or importantly, how they're dealing with the stress of a game. And particularly you're looking for things like rage issues that might not have been there a month ago. Lack of communication. If they used to be very talkative, all of a sudden they're starting to go silent or aren't doing call outs that you knew they once did. Those are some of those warning signs. And the other way you get to see whether or not there's an issue is making sure to have team play or just team building exercises. So I'm sure you've all had, I'm sure everyone here has heard of Among Us or have students massively playing Among Us all the time. So we've been doing a lot of that as well, a lot of team building between mutual teams playing Among Us, of course. And even that, which, you know, it's a fun banter, but that is indicated, at least for a couple of people that I've taken aside and started talking to, because it's clear they've been stressed about it. And as soon as possible, you want to try to start seeing if they're willing to open up to you. And if they won't open up to you, or at least mention or say you're concerned about it, it's making sure they're still aware of the whatever mental health wellness facilities you have on campus. We work really closely with our counselors and are trying to identify it, because everyone knows right now, everyone is very, very, very stressed, and trying to be as accommodating as possible is honestly, it will keep programs going, because I've seen what happens when teams don't focus on that. And you might have a great functioning squad that's winning every match, and all of a sudden the season's over early because two of them hate each other so much they're not willing to play anymore.
Sure.
And it's a really important thing to take care of.
Okay. Alfred,
Yeah.
talk to me about recruiting and building teams when everything is virtual and everything's remote. How do you recruit remotely?
Yeah, so the recruiting remotely, one thing I've taken advantage of is in high school, the teachers tend to email all their students constantly, right? That's not something that we see in college, because you have so many different professors, so many different realities. But here, with only 2,000 students, it's a lot easier for me to like pump out an email to all the students, right? So we can find students that way. Taking advantage of social media, Twitter, Instagram, you know, and linking it to the school stuff. So you start to get parents who ask questions and everything else. And that creates recruitment opportunities, kids coming to you and asking questions. What is esports? Why is it different? Why can't I play this game? You know, what is League of Legends? What is Rocket League? They may not have heard of it, but you get them in here, you get them to start to play, and then things work out really well. But building that team is hard in a remote setting, because we do rely on Discord. Discord is that glue that holds the team together now, right? And in high school, you have to be real careful with the Discord, because you are talking about kids under 18. And kids tend to see Discord as kind of a free-for-all. I've had a class Discord for 3 years now in my history class. And the first 2 years, everything was fine. I have a list of rules. You know, I have my bots in there and my mods. This year, my history Discord absolutely erupted within 24 hours of online school going, and I had to shut it down. And the stuff that was on there, like, I had to call the police because it could be considered child porn, right? Luckily, my Discord for my team, since it's so much smaller, since I'm only running about 20 athletes, they police themselves. And the new athletes, they understand the culture real fast, because the older athletes don't put up with it. They're like, hey, I mean, I don't even have to step in most of the time. Like, I'll flip up on my phone. I'm like, what the? And then all of a sudden I'll just see, like, take that down. That's unacceptable. Do you want to be benched? Yada, yada, yada. And so that communication and that team building through Discord has become huge this year.
Okay. Nate, what are some activities or practices that build trust and relationships for new programs? And then talk to me about kind of the activities that you might utilize to bring new players into an established program and team.
Sure. I mean, a lot of that probably can be answered in a similar type of answer, right? So you're looking at not only building new programs, but bringing in new students. So the types of activities that we typically look to do right off the jump are having a lot of orientation activities for the students. Obviously, online, that looks quite a bit different. So this semester for our new students, we really focused on not only having the team activities where we pull them aside for their individual team orientations, but then we also pulled aside the freshmen that we were bringing into the program. This year it was 7 incoming freshmen into our varsity program, and sat them down and did a separate orientation for just those students so they could get to know each other a little bit better going into the start of the semester. So some of that stuff is, you know, your typical icebreaker type activities where they're talking about their personal life, where they grew up, what they like to do, the games that they play. And then we got them into some other team building type activities where we were using games that they don't play and challenging them to work together to build trust together. And we do the same thing for some of the varsity games as well. And then in addition to that, we try and make sure that at least once a month they're getting outside of the game, doing something together to help that team building, that bonding really occur. One thing that's really worked for us through this whole COVID experiences was moving them from indoor activities to a lot of outdoor activities. So they've been able to go hiking, they've been able to go biking, they've been able to do a lot of outdoor activity, which also then in turn feeds back into their physical health and well-being, which has been a positive note for them going into this fall semester.
Okay. So I want to kind of delicately move into this next question because I don't want to keep on repeating the same two things in the sense of like Discord and different games. So let me ask you guys, with those two exceptions, right? This is open to anyone. Is there any other strategies that you might implement to build a community remotely that's not Discord centric and that's not playing games like Among Us and things like that, right? So like, for example, Nate talking about like going hiking and being off campus and being outside. Are there any other strategies that you guys have implemented or think about wanting to implement to build those communities remotely?
Go ahead, John.
All right, I appreciate it. I know for us, one thing we've been doing is trying to get study groups with different grouping majors together and such. And even if it's just one of those, like, what is it they're working on that semester, having a once a week talk with other people that are working on degrees similar to them has helped a lot. One, because at least I know they're talking about schoolwork they should be doing at least once a week. So that's one way that we've done that. Is another way for them to, one, connect to their teammates, but also to feel more like they're part of a larger group, which I think is a really important thing, especially when you're trying to build that sense of team membership.
Awesome. Thank you. Alfred, Ronnie?
One thing I really like, and I didn't even think about it till Nate mentioned it, but that outside activity I think is so important, because esports athletes are already kind of insular anyways because they spend so much time on video games. Getting them out, because those kids do have outside interest. And so I think, and thank you, Nate, for this, because I'm going to start implementing that here in the next couple of weeks. I'm going to try to plan an outing, maybe even to, I know this isn't what it's called, but the bounce house, where they have all the trampolines and the big foam blocks, and just kind of getting them out of their comfort zone, because you're going to start seeing them giggle and laugh and everything else, and they're just coming together in ways they hadn't before. That's a great idea. So thank you for that, Nate.
Cool. Okay, so we're going to transition into best practices for competing online here. And I'm excited to learn about this because I think everyone's got a little bit of a different perspective. So first, starting up with Ronnie, with a hybrid program, how do you integrate coaching into your daily routine, and what does that look like?
Well, so it's definitely been an adjustment, and I've worked a lot with the kids over the summer that I've been able to retain. The Summer Showdown helped a lot with that, building up some initial kind of hype for the program and just getting the word out that we were back. In Texas, most athletic programs are still shut down. I'm in Houston specifically, so it's an area that we don't have a lot of leverage when it comes to like doing things outside of the building or in groups at all. So a lot of what I've been doing is just trying to kind of go to where the kids are. So we've set up a YouTube page. We've got some videos out. I've got a new athletic director who's really helped me kind of get some of that stuff off the ground, and really just kind of like getting the involvement of those kids who were here last year and kind of laying the groundwork for the ones who were coming in. That's kind of been the main focus that we've had, the main way we've been able to keep it going.
Okay. Alfred, your program supports a mixture of remote and in-person playing. How do you manage your players with both? And do you have a go-to app to manage their gameplay and their chat? Kind of just give me the rundown.
Yeah, so we'll talk about the app whose name shall not be said. But like one of the struggles that I have in the hybrid model, where I have students coming in, I had to rebuild what we call our arena, because I like to model it on the college model. I didn't want to just call it a computer lab, so we call it the esports arena, even though really it's a 26 by 26 high school classroom. I had to remodel the entire classroom to separate students, so they can't be as close together as they're used to. And a lot of students still don't feel comfortable. Arizona was one of those hot spots for COVID, so they stay home. But now the issue that I'm finding is those stay-at-home students, it's hard to get a hold of them because they can't set their own schedule. When they were forced to come in right after school, it was easy for them. Now they're home. I mean, I have one student who sometimes I have insomnia, so I'm up on my computer grading at like 3 a.m, and there he is, champ select. And I'm like, what are you doing, man? Go to bed. And then he won't wake up for practice because he plays until 6 a.m, and then he sleeps until 3. And then I'm like, where are you? We start practice at 2:15. And so his friends are texting him and they're trying to call him and wake him up. And sometimes that's the difficulty, I think. And I think that has more to do with the maturity of the high schooler, not being able to set those boundaries for themselves to set a schedule. And that's something they learn. And probably college freshmen have something similar, that first semester, because I've taught at college, they all schedule that 7:15 class and then they stop coming after the first week, because they can't wake up. But by the time they're seniors, they figured it out. They figured out what's most successful, the things they're interested in, they go to. And so, yeah, that's a struggle, but I think that's a struggle that all high school coaches are going to face. Kids having that executive skill of setting themselves up. But it has worked, and as we've kind of gone through the summer showdown, and it's started to become more real to them, as opposed to Coach Alfred reaching out on Discord to other coaches like Ronnie to set up a scrimmage, which thank you for that, Ronnie. That was a fantastic game. Now that it's starting to become more real, I'm starting to see these students get involved. And also, we had a real deep run in that summer showdown. And so the kids are, hey, this is real, this is good, especially my newer players. They were like, wow, this is kind of exciting. Look how hyped up we are. And so that's all building that reality. And so that hybrid is starting to evolve, but we go back to school Monday. So we'll see how it goes.
Okay. So with those challenges of virtual and hybrid and what have you, Nate, talk to me about what challenges you have faced coaching virtually, and how do you accomplish having the caliber of team that you do with everything that's happening?
Sure. So the biggest one is probably something that John mentioned there, is just the fact that you're never really sure from a virtual standpoint how much of their attention you actually have at a given point. You have a meeting, whether it's in Discord or it's over Microsoft Teams or Zoom or whatever it might be, and how many of them are playing a game in the background? It's a great question. So typically what we're doing is we're making it mandatory to do video calls like this, where it's a lot easier to see folks when they're paying attention to what's on the docket of the day, and to make sure that we're setting the agenda and letting players know ahead of time what the meeting is going to be about, what questions we're going to be asking, what feedback we're expecting to get from them during the meeting, so that they're ready to answer the questions that we have for them. Instead of just talking at them, we're asking questions and talking with them. That's been probably the biggest thing that we've changed in the delivery. Normally, when we resorted to online meetings or online coaching, it was something where we needed to fix an immediate problem that was happening. That's different this semester because it's now the norm. And because it's the norm, we kind of have to change the way that we do things. And that has led to the online meetings being treated much more like a class than maybe they were before. And that's helped the players stay on track as well.
Okay. Ronnie, in the vein of practices, talk to me about scheduling practices. So how do you set up times? How do you coordinate them? Do you meet individually with your players? Do you do team meetings? Do you do a hybrid of both? Kind of just give me a full-on rundown of your practice system.
So most of our practices are pretty straightforward. They're real similar last year. I will kind of take attendance because we have a pretty small group right now. At the moment, our League of Legends team is 7 or 8 kids, and we have one Rocket League team as well. It's only about four kids. So really it's in total only about 12 students. So I pretty much will address the entire group most of the time. take attendance for an upcoming scrimmage that I'd like to set up. Hey, who's available today at 4:30? And try to keep it consistent so that they kind of expect that same practice time each week, or maybe twice a week or something like that. And I found that initially it was kind of difficult to get it off the ground, but once the kids figured out, oh, this is going to be a regular thing, he's going to come in every week, this is going to be something we have to commit to, they started showing up even without me having to kind of check in with them. So just kind of giving them that consistent practice time, giving them a consistent kind of schedule to go by has helped tremendously. And kind of to echo what everyone else is saying, it's hard to know how much attention you have from the kids at any given moment. So I try to kind of just not be in their way. They've got enough stuff going on right now with everything that they're adjusting to. So I just let them know, hey guys, look, I'm here to kind of set this up for you. We can review the match afterwards and kind of see what went wrong, what went right. And we broadcast all of our matches too, so that makes that pretty simple. We can always go back and kind of, one of our practice sessions each week is to kind of review the tape. So doing that as a group has kind of helped us all, the community stay really close together. And it's also helped us kind of grow together.
So I want to kind of add a question here. Sorry, Melanie. But one of a conflict that I always find every single year, no matter what, no matter how much messaging you get out to the students, is you're going to have a kid who takes a class during a practice day that's supposed to be practice time, right? Or they want to, particularly in the high school space, maybe they want to do, hey, I want to do band, or I want to do soccer. How does that work? So from the collegiate perspective, how do you handle students with classes that can run late at night, right, on whatever days, or different extracurriculars? And then in the high school space, how do you manage schedules with that conflict kind of looming in the first place as well?
I'll answer the high school portion, absolutely. But really, a lot of what I'm looking out for is just if the kids are, some of the kids we've had to deal with. One of our seniors last year, when we were kind of making a playoff run, he got a part-time job. And so he started to have to make, instead of making practice at 4:30, he had to go to work, right? So it became kind of a push and pull type thing where a lot of his friends and the other guys on the team are like, hey man, we really need you. We need you to show up. And, at the end of the day, it does kind of come down to how much they prioritize it personally. But if you've done a lot of the groundwork to let them know how important this is, this is a sanctioned activity. This isn't something we're coming in and just, hanging out for an hour and just blowing off steam. This is a focused activity that we're trying to improve on each week and make some progress. By laying a lot of that groundwork, it's made it a lot easier to kind of get them to commit to it.
Okay.
On the collegiate side for us, it's a little bit more straightforward. I suppose it's written into the player contracts, so they need to be taking classes that finish before 6:30, or they're not playing. If there's an exception for that, sometimes we have a junior or senior who's got a class that's only offered at one particular time. If it fits within the potential practice schedule, we may consider it, but it's a violation of their player contract.
Now, is that player contract required for all scholarship athletes, just your varsity team, all of your students?
All the varsity teams, yeah.
Okay.
So every person who's on the varsity team, as well as any of the subs.
Okay. I like that. Alfred, Doc, do you have any ideas? Or
Yeah. So another thing in high school, two conflicts. One, in Arizona, there's a rule you can only compete in one sport per season. So, for example, you can't be both a cross-country runner and a football player. So a lot of the athletes were kind of confused because they thought, hey, I want to do volleyball and boys volleyball and esports. And I flat out told them, no, you can't do that before I even knew the rule. Because I'm like, you got to commit. You got to give me that commitment.
right.
But actually my biggest struggle is with the other coaches. So since esports is so new on campus, a lot of these guys, a lot of my players, especially my juniors and seniors, they've come up and they've done cross country, track, basketball, whatever, and now they want to switch, and that coach feels like I'm poaching for them. And I'm like, you know what? This is high school. This is the time to explore. And let's be perfectly honest. I was a D1 athlete. And of my football team of 95 players, only 4 of us got a scholarship to D1. And I lost my scholarship my freshman year because I blew out my knee and had to have 5 surgeries over the next 3 years, right? Most athletes are going to cap in high school. That's it. They're done. Yeah, some of these kids may be playing video games the rest of their days, but how many, like Nate said, he's got 2,500 people in your club and how many in your varsity. So let's let them explore. Maybe they can't go on and play basketball at D1, but maybe they can get a scholarship at Grand Canyon or ASU, right? And so letting kids explore, to me, is super important, but sometimes those coaches are really territorial. And so there is that conflict there that, you know, is on top of they're getting a part-time job, or, you know, family issues come up or whatever.
It's interesting you say that, because I think as we as a collegiate program has progressed, when we first started, we were very accommodating, and I had kids who'd come in and they would go, oh, I want to do the swim team. Okay, well, we're going to coordinate and make it work so that you can do both. And as our program has continued to evolve, I think like we have become the territorial coaches, and now I've got kids who come in and go like, well, I'm interested in doing swim too. And I go, okay, well, tough. You've got to choose between one or the other, because we want that commitment. So it's interesting hearing it from the high school that you guys kind of have that same struggle. So I don't want to hold this up for too long. So continuing on, thanks for letting me derail everyone. Doc Price, how do you set goals, review VODs, analyze opponents virtually? Do your players help with the task? Are you running the show? What's the deal?
Great question. It really depends on the game title and familiarity. One of the things I realize is that I am not the expert half the times on whatever the games it is, and especially when you're having a variety of teams and you're the one-man band, so to speak, for the admin side of stuff. I am lucky enough to have some captains that I could really reach out to help me dedicate looking for things, and so I pretty much am more checking their work for it. Like, I have a bit of experience and understanding of basic concepts for all the games. I try to play them at least a little bit, even if I'm like bronze or wood league essentially. But it revolves a lot of leaning on the students. After that, of course, it's making sure there's like a system in place to find and get film on opponents if it's possible. So we're participating in the Peach Belt Conference for Overwatch coming up here in a couple of weeks. And so we're already trying to find any film we can from previous tournaments that the teams have been in, getting ready for that, because we already have our list of who we're playing over the next 8 or 9 weeks and such. And so we're looking for key strategies, comps they're often they like to pull off, or who likes to play which characters. That helps us formulate overall strategies for map selection, of course, in Overwatch's case. Or if we were playing League of Legends, it would be like ban strategies for like, okay, they were really bad with push comps. Let's just ban out these champions we don't want to have against us and just go all in on this kind of competition aspect of it. I think that one of the biggest problems though with VODs is they're just time intensive. And when you don't have a lot of time, you really have to either, this is where kind of one of those things we've talked about in another of these coaching sessions is, if you have some players that might not be the best mechanically, and maybe they're not going to be the starting 5 or 6 or 3, if it's Rocket League or something, if you have a couple players that are still wanting to help and be a part of the team, they can be invaluable for helping you go through film, because it takes a lot of time and you have to have a keen eye, and it's easier to train someone to do that than it is to suddenly move them from, say, a bronze level to a diamond or grandmaster or something. And that can save a lot of time and still keep people involved, because that's one of the biggest things. It's like, you don't want to tell someone they can't be part of the team, so you got to find something for them to be able to do and still be able to contribute in some way.
One of my former staff, and so I had, before I moved into the director role at Illinois Wesleyan, I was in a coaching role. And so I focus on League of Legends, and my coaching, when we did film reviews and everything, I mean, we'd end up spending 2 hours on one film because you're just dissecting it so much, right? And I ended up when I moved to director role, we hired a full-time League of Legends head coach who used to play for Maryville. And I always remember, like, he came in one day and we did a VOD review, and he ended up sitting me down, and he did a solid 4-hour lesson for me about how to effectively do a VOD review, to the point where we were going through full hour-long films in about 20 minutes and getting the same amount of content out of it than we would have in the full. So it's interesting. So it's definitely something to look up. But I 100%. I mean, VOD reviews are not fun, not fun. So with that, so one of the things you talked about was the capacity to use student workers, interns, kind of build out a bigger network around you. So going to Alfred, Nate, and Ronnie, your staffing structure, are you guys using student workers? Are you using remote coaches? Are you guys using, what's your story there?
Yeah, actually, so I'll jump in. We actually this year when we're recruiting made content creation one of the categories that we're recruiting. So even just going into this upcoming season, we're looking for students who are more likely to be involved in something like editing down a video into a highlight clip, or sending something out that we can put on our YouTube page to kind of attract some interest. And so that's definitely been a major focus for us. And you know, you've only got so many players you can start, like Doc said. So after that, starting 5 or starting 6 or whatever, you have to kind of get creative to get everyone else who wants to get involved in some way. So yeah, definitely that's something that's been a focus for us.
Okay, awesome. Nate, Alfred?
Sure. For us, it's a little bit all over the place. So for the club recreational level, we employ 26 student employees who oversee the operations of the facilities, the updating of computer hardware, and then we also employ a smaller group who does social media, event management, things like that for us. The coaching and the managing of the teams, we have a administrative level head coach who works for the program, a staff member at the university. And then in addition to that, we've got a student coach and a student manager for each team that is scholarshiped rather than paid.
Okay, awesome.
So for me, there's 3 components there. Like Ronnie, I'm trying to incorporate a content creation, which will get more students involved. I think it will help that next year they're actually giving me an esports class. So I'll end up teaching 4 history courses and an esports class.
Cool.
And content creation will be part of that. So I think that will help drive the program. But for my leadership, because my program is so small, only about 20 athletes, I focus on building leadership within each team and getting those captains really driving the decisions. Some of the arguments coaches have been having is how much active coaching are you supposed to be doing during a match, right? And so I come from a football, baseball program where during the entire game, the coach is shouting out, these are plays, these are audibles, and you're paying attention to that, to esports, where if you look at the pros, that coach isn't there at the match at all. And so I'm fighting my own internal experience as an athletics coach to constantly being involved versus this new norm in esports. And so this year I've kind of figured out that I'm going to actively coach my new players. Like I got a couple players who are only level like 25 or 27 in League of Legends. And so I'm helping them more in the game. Like, hey, are you paying attention to this? Hey, look at your map. I mean, I don't tell them exactly what to do, but I remind them of those fundamentals to get them on that level. But my gold players, my silvers, my platinums, no, I let them run it in game. And I really have focused on those team captains pushing that in communications during game, right? Making sure that communication happens. And then the last thing I've done is I've actually grabbed a brand new teacher who's on campus, and he's now my assistant coach. So he's not getting paid. It's technically a volunteer position to get that state money that we have to volunteer so many hours to get. But he is a much more experienced esports player than I am. So I've kind of shifted over to more like a general manager role, making sure everything is happening, and he's focused on those skills. And so that separation of work description really helps.
Okay, awesome. So this is a fun topic to kind of get close to wrapping up on. How do you guys manage tension and toxicity between your students? And so not only between your students, but outwards towards other students, outwards towards other schools and programs, behavior on Twitch TV, behavior on YouTube, Twitter, whatever it may be. How do you address it? How do you handle it? How do you go about making sure it doesn't happen? This is for all of you guys, so.
I'll take a stab at it first. So for us, a lot of it has boiled down to the players. Again, it's a part of the contract. They tell us what their handles are on Twitch, on Twitter, in the games that they play. The contract states that they may not change those during the duration of their agreement with the university. Anything that they post under those handles is under student code of conduct. Easy solutions. So we've taken students to the student code of conduct board and reported actions accordingly. The Discord that we operate, it all uses their real name as well. That's helped stop quite a bit of the toxicity and negative language from happening, just simply because they know they're posting as themselves and they're representing themselves rather than a gamer tag that they're hiding behind.
Awesome.
I'll jump in next. We have a kind of a different, I guess, a different reality at the high school level than Nate does, because we have kids who are 14 years old sometimes who are jumping into these matches, and we like I mentioned, we broadcast all of our official matches. So it's really important that we kind of stomp out any of that toxicity as soon as possible. So what I've kind of made it a point to do, I reach out to the opposing coach on match day, kind of introduce myself. Hi, I'm Ronnie, right? I'll send a little photo in my email and all that stuff, just to kind of put a face on the program. And then from there, just let them know if they need anything. I'm here to help. I'm available if they have any questions. And once we start the match up, I'll also introduce myself to the other kids. If it's in League of Legends, right there in the built-in chat. If it's Rocket League, I'll maybe reach out in some other way. But typically I'll let them know, hey, there is an adult watching, and I'm also broadcasting this. So don't do anything you wouldn't want your parents to see. Don't do anything that's going to, misrepresent who you want to represent yourself as. Don't do anything that, the school would be mad at you for doing. And after kind of laying those ground rules with a lot of the kids, I typically don't see too many issues. And the few times that we've run into something like that, PlayVS has been really good about following up with those coaches and kind of, it's all different levels of coaching when you're at the high school level. So sometimes these folks don't even know what to look for when you're talking about toxicity. And PlayVS has been really good about, introducing some of these newer coaches to even that as a concept.
And setting ground rules is super important. And Ronnie can attest to this. I have a player who's we'll go with sassy and flamboyant, if that makes sense. Yeah. And he likes to gently tease, we'll call it that too, gently tease the opposing team in the pre-draft kind of loading screen. And I asked him, I'm like, are you trying to do that to mess with their heads a little? And he's like, no, I just like being this way. And, he actually made some friends on Ronnie's team. And I saw them playing together the other day at midnight. But sometimes it works, and sometimes because he is a certain orientation, there's a lot of negativity for that. So I've had to set him down and be like, hey, no, we're just not going to do that. Here are your limits. And if you cross this, I'm benching you, which means we'll forfeit. And that happened once in the spring. The other thing, between players, sometimes passions get up. And so having them get up after the match, so between the two matches in League of Legends, Rocket League's kind of hard because the matches go bam, 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 bam. Having them go and take walks in separate directions just to cool down really helps. But I actually have kind of a weird question, and maybe the college coaches can help me with this. My ADC and my support started dating over the summer. Yeah. Which was really unexpected. And the support's mom called me and she's like, is this okay? I'm like, I have no idea. And so I told them they're not allowed to break up till December when the season and right now they're all cute. They buy skins for each other and it's super adorable. And they try to find matching champs. And I'm like, no.
So I've actually had multiple students in our program start dating each other, including players on the same team. And look, the ugly truth of it is, as inconvenient as it may become for you, you have to recognize that they are students first. And that kind of gives them the freedom to do that, right? And there's nothing you can do about it. Is it going to create an ugly situation for you? Potentially, but it really comes down to how you handle it, right? So if there is a split, having a conversation with both of them separately and then together, that this is this is the environment you're in. Here, I don't care what happened outside of the arena. It's business first, right? And if that's not something that they can handle, then you have to handle it. But I mean, like, as far as the support's mom calling you, like, there's nothing you can do about it. It's their students first, and dating is part of being a student, right? So,
Well, to be clear, she was very excited and wanted to let me know. She wasn't
Yeah.
concerned. She was
Okay.
like, "Do you know they're dating?" And I was
Yeah.
like, "Whoa, calm down."
Yeah.
I don't care.
No, it has. I mean, we've had a situation where we had two players dating on two different teams, but within the same game and the same schedules and practices and all that, and it was a very ugly breakup. And again, like, having that conversation with them both that says, like, look, if there's something that happens outside the arena, like, okay, that's one thing, but it doesn't come in here. When you're here, you're doing this. You're working with your team. You're practicing whatever. So I don't think that should change the fact that they're on the same team. Whether or not they're mature enough to handle that in that capacity, that comes down to the mentorship and guidance that I think you provide. But at the end of the day, I think your SOL is as ugly of a situation as it is. Your SOL.
Yeah, I mean, they were friends before, and they're also
Right.
friends with my sassy mid laner. So I think it'll be fine when they break up. I think, yeah. But it's just, that's like, I'm living in fear of that moment. I'm like, are we
Sure.
going to be like
No.
deep in the season playoffs, and all of a sudden my ADC and support are talking to each other?
Been there. Doc, do you want a chance to address toxicity and tensions?
Yeah, funny enough, I actually had this conversation earlier with my COD team. So I think one of the things, at least for me, is all my students refer to it as "quote unquote" the talk, but it's mostly just me. I do this with all the students whenever we have people come in and just talking about like what it means to be part of an esports program, because our program is still relatively new. It's only 2 years old. It's in a state where we really don't have a lot of programs that have been established. And so my thing is always to start off like, the fact that you're having a chance to play esports, period, like you are not just representing our university, Henderson, you're representing esports, period, to a ton of people that have never interacted with it. And I kind of remind them that there are programs that for established things, whether it be debate or athletics, that will be just like multi-million dollar endowments that will disappear overnight because somebody screws up and does something they shouldn't be doing. And I usually, kind of like to try to put the quote unquote fear of God in them in that sense. And that's one way I do it. But the other thing is addressing issues that happen that are trends in gaming communities. We have a Super Smash Brothers team. If anyone understands fighting games, you know that money matches and those things are huge in that, and having to deal with trying to explain to them, no, you can't do these things that you're used to doing because it's been around for a while. You have to be very forward with addressing issues that are habits in some of the communities that have been there before they started to become mainstream. And that's one thing I know we're all probably dealing with some level, is there are habits and other things that are still in those communities that you have to remind students like, yeah, that's not appropriate. It's not okay. It doesn't matter if some of the pros do it. No, you can't do that. And it's sometimes very difficult. I've lost students because of that, because they don't understand why they can't do that or act that way. And it's like, I'm sorry you don't get it. And sometimes that's the answer. It's like, I'd rather save the program and keep the program going for years to come and make it available for the next batch of students than somebody that could sink the ship.
Sure. Okay, awesome. I believe that's the last question we have here. So I think I've checked the QA a few times, and I think you guys have been tackling questions as they come. But we do have one active one right now. So what advice can you give a new esports coach? So they'll leave that open to all of you. So I'm not sure if this is directed towards the high school or collegiate level. So go ahead and tackle them from both perspectives. What advice can you give a new esports coach?
No, go ahead, Dr. Price.
Yeah. From a collegiate level, and though I'm sure from high school levels, this applies a bit, is talk to people on your campus and realize and figure out the resources you have available. It's one of those things that, at least at a college level, I know it's sometimes at a high school level, a lot of things get siloed off, in which you if you would have known about it, you all of a sudden have all these resources. But there are plenty of examples I've run into, but also talking to other people where, if you would have just talked to the art department, they would have sent you over like 4 or 5 students that would have been happy to do graphic design for your Twitch channel or design a logo for free, and heck, even maybe become part of one of your teams or something. So the simple thing of going around and just talking to people in different departments or just even, lone teachers is a huge advantage and something you want to capitalize as soon as possible, because even if they don't have something to help you with right then, if something comes down the line, an email or something out, all of a sudden, like there are too many times where I've either gotten to talk to somebody I would never otherwise been able to, or all of a sudden I've gotten some resources extra, or I got a student out of a situation so that they can keep playing, or at least they're available to practice because somebody just, oh yeah, I remember talking to Dr. Price. And it's like, that's a really big one. And you don't have to know anything about esports or be super versed or be able to play the game itself. And doing that alone will help you a ton.
I think in addition to that, it's a really loaded question at the higher education level. I mean, you can check Callum's Twitter for his opinion on that aspect of things, but what is the role? Coach is not a very well-defined esports role at either the high school or the collegiate level. Are you the manager of 10 different teams? Well, if you are, then you're not really the coach of any one particular team. Are you the director of a program? And if you are, what roles are you actually having? I'd say if you're applying for the position, if you're looking at positions, ask what their defined role for that is, because there is no real defined role at either the high school or the collegiate level. It's difficult. You are probably serving in 10 different roles that you maybe didn't expect.
I love you, Nate.
That's poor advice, but I don't have anything better than that.
It's true advice.
Expect to do a lot of stuff.
I'm so happy that you said all that.
Yeah, I think if I had anything to add, it would just be that I think maybe a better title than esports coach, to Nate's point, would be esports advocate. That's essentially what your job is. So like I mentioned, we broadcast our games. I do play-by-play commentary, and I'm no expert. I've never been outside of like gold rank. I'm not like incredibly talented in any way, but just kind of being there and like giving some of that kind of play-by-play and using the tools that you have available, it does wonders.
Yeah, and to Ronnie's point, especially if you're doing a high school program, you become an advocate because no one at your school knows what's going on. I mean, you don't know what you're maybe about 2 steps ahead of them, but no one knows what's going on. No one knows what to expect. This is such a new thing that it's not in anybody's worldview. So expect a lot of pushback from even your own colleagues. But really what I would say for high school is don't shoot too high in the first couple years, right? Try to limit yourself to 1 team for each or 2 teams. Like when they started approaching me, I thought, oh, I'm going to get 30 computers and I'm going to have this and it's going to look like a college and it's going to be awesome. And they're like, well, here's 7. And so I had to learn time management and all these other things. And I actually, because I was forced to limit myself, I think I picked up a lot more. So starting small is not a bad thing at all. And also with starting small is don't try to do it all. If you're not ready to stream and get out there, just have a Twitter feed, and talk about it. Post videos from other programs. And then for high school, one of the best tools, and it sounds like I'm sucking up, but is the PlayVS Super Coach for your state. Those are people who have gone through the process before, and they have the attitude of they want to help. I'm one for Arizona, and I talk to coaches all the time, and I'm like, hey, have you tried this? Or have you tried this? Or, whoa, what are you doing, man? No, you can't do that. And so just start small. Just don't stress. Don't try to be everything to everyone. And just accept that you're going to make mistakes. And it's okay. But yeah, be that advocate like Ronnie said. That's one thing my principal says is like, I'm always kicking down doors going, ooh, give me that. Give me that for esports. In fact, they just decided to give me a door wrap for my arena that no other coach has. And so now all the other coaches are super jealous. And I'm like, whatever, you can kick down the door too. So be an advocate for your program, except you're going to make mistakes, and just take it 1 step at a time.
And then I think my advice that I would give is to immerse yourself. So yes, you should be an advocate and support esports and build out, but gamers and kids are going to see through you if you're not what you tell them you are. You know, these are students, they're bright students who are passionate about something. And if you don't share that passion, this isn't a space that you should be in. And I don't mean that like territorially or hostily. I'm saying that like the people that you're supporting and the ecosystem that we're trying to create deserves people that are passionate about it. And so immerse yourself in it, right? Be ready to have conversations about the League of Legends World Championship with your team, and be able to talk about, oh, TSM got this group draw, like that totally sucks for them. Like, you don't necessarily need to be a subject matter expert, but being able to have those conversations is really impactful to those students. So for us, like for example, I have a League of Legends Overwatch and a League of Legends and an Overwatch full-time head coach. So I have two different full-time head coaches, and we have 5 games. And I require each of my full-time coaches to play and have an understanding of each of our 5 games competitive ecosystems. Because I want my Overwatch coach to be able to walk through the facility and talk to our Fortnite guys about the World Championship qualifiers or the FNCS. And I want my Smash players to be able to approach my League of Legends coach and talk about, oh man, did you see this buff that Ness just got? Things like, right? And I want them to be able to sit there and have those conversations because I want them to be relatable. So really, like when it comes down to it, immerse yourself in this space, immerse yourself in your students' passions, because that passion of yours will translate into the work that you're doing for your program, which will enable you to be an advocate. It will enable you to be a good coach. It will enable you to want to make change for the better of the ecosystem. So that's mine. So I think that's all the questions we have. If anyone has any more, by all means, throw them in the chat. But otherwise, everyone, I genuinely appreciate everything you have shared, all of your wisdom, the time that you guys have spent. Thank you, everyone who tuned in. Melanie, I'm going to pass it back over to you now.
Yeah, thank you so much, Callum. Thank you, all my panelists. You've done a wonderful job. We really appreciate it. Kind of with what Callum was saying, immersing yourself. We have a few more events coming up. The first one is a seat at the table. We are doing a game changers initiative where we are trying to highlight different people throughout the esports world. So we're going to be looking at pursuing esports adjacent careers. We have some amazing people. We have Wendy Lacotte from HyperX. We've got Dr. Melita Moore with her founding of Levels Unlocked Enterprises, and Rachel Feinberg from Actio. I always say it wrong, so I apologize if I said it wrong. And then we'll go into some more healthy gaming for our next coach clinic. We've got a wonderful lineup there, and then a seat at the table. I'll post the Zoom links in the chat. And then, as always, if you have any questions, you can reach out to support@playversus.com. You can sign up at PlayVS. We have our super coaches. I put the link in the chat as well. All of these wonderful coaches are our super coaches, both on the collegiate and high school side. So they are here to help you and be just a person there for you. Thank you so much, and reach out to me if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone.